What's good? It's your boy Josh Jones ESQ, also known as the Dope Black Lawyer, and I want to welcome you to this episode of Law and Hip Hop. I'm gonna let that ride for just a little bit. I am Dre 305, coming in live from the 305, just like the Dope Black Lawyer. I'm gonna let the beat drop. We got a lot to talk about today, so before we get too far, make sure that you stay and find out about artificial intelligence. I know a lot of people are now using ChatGPT and other things to try to make their life easier, but AI may cause you to go to jail, so you might want to find out what's going on. It's crazy out here in the streets, so we're going to let you know. As you know, I already said I'm Josh Jones ESQ, the Dope Black Lawyer. This is the number one place to come so that you can get legal news and current events from a black culture perspective. There's really no other outlet that's providing this to the community quite like this. So every week I'm coming here on Thursdays at 3 and breaking down some of the top stories for the week. Some are positive, some are negative, but all of them are informational, and hopefully we can make it entertaining for you. So with that said, welcome to Law and Hip Hop. Let us know right now if you're new or if you're an OG. So type new if this is your first time. Type OG if you've been here before. And let us know where you're watching from. So like I said, we're down here in the 305. And for those that don't know, probably only like 3 people. That's Miami, Florida. And so just let us know. And we're going to jump right into the headlines. So the first story that we're going to be talking about this week is sort of a story that was in the news last year, or maybe even the year before. It was from 2021. Oakland Raiders, now Las Vegas Raiders, actually football player Henry Ruggs was charged with killing a woman in Las Vegas, a little bit west of the Strip. He was in his Corvette going about 156 miles an hour when he hit the lady. Her car caught on fire, blew up, and she and her dog both died. So Henry just recently agreed to plead guilty to a felony count of DUI, resulting in death, and a misdemeanor of manslaughter, which will carry a sentence of 3 to 10 years. So he was facing up to 50-something years based on the law in Nevada. But his attorney and his team were able to, help him to get that down. Ever since this happened, he's been at home on house arrest, and not only on house arrest, but he's also had to be compliant with not doing any type of alcohol. If he would have drank alcohol, they had a device that was hooked up to him so that they could tell that as well. So this young man, had a promising NFL career, and got drunk with his girlfriend. She was also in his car, and ended up having a tragic situation where a young lady and her dog lost their life. The young lady was only 23. Her name was Tina Tintor. So, I obviously condolences to her family. Hopefully this provides them with a little bit of justice. Obviously they'll never bring her back, but, that's a story out there as well. So as soon as Henry got in this crash, like the next day the team dropped him. They didn't want anything to do with him. So we got to make smart decisions out here in the world. Story 2, this one, I didn't even really remember this, but there was a New York woman who drove through a Black Lives Matter protest, and she was able to plead out to a sentence that was only 6 hours of community service, no jail time, and this happened back in December of 2020. She drove her BMW into a crowd and injured 6 people. There was video, and it showed people flying through the air. It's wild. If you Google it, you can find it. Maybe we'll share a link to the story in the comments as well. But the lady, through her lawyer, was able to work out this deal where she's not going to do any time, and luckily there were no fatalities, but we'll just keep going. We're not even gonna stop here, because New York is the what the Florida today, what the New York is going on out here. We're gonna just go to the next story, which I know a lot of people are already talking about. There was a young man named Jordan Neely who was riding the F train, which when I lived in New York, that was my main mode of transportation to get from Queens to the city, the E and the F. And, he was a homeless young man who we've come to learn a lot about since this happened, but a gentleman who they're calling an ex-Marine, but they have not identified who he is. He took it upon himself to restrain Jordan Neely, put him in a chokehold on the ground for at least 3 minutes, but there are several people who said that the hold was held for probably closer to 15 minutes, resulting in Jordan's death. The medical examiner has already released that, saying that he died from being suffocated. And essentially, they say that Jordan was acting in an erratic manner. There is a freelance journalist who took a video of the situation. His name was Juan Alberto Vasquez. And on Facebook, he said, Neely was screaming on the train saying, "I don't have food. I don't have drink. I'm fed up. I don't mind going to jail and getting life in prison. I'm ready to die." Vasquez also stated that that Jordan was nonviolent, but started to throw garbage at fellow commuters. So that's when the 24-year-old took it upon himself to restrain him lethally. So as I said, it happened on the F train, headed toward the Broadway Lafayette station. And, even after Jordan stopped moving, he still continued to hold him. And you could hear people, according to Vasquez, saying he'll be all right, as if what was happening was no big deal. Very, very sad. So, it's been a lot of talk about the story for the last couple of days. So I kind of took a deep dive. I found another article on the Intercept.com where there was a quote that said, "Of course, you're going to have individuals deputizing themselves, thinking that this is the response," said Adolfo Abreu, a housing campaign director for Voices of Community Activists and Leaders of New York, or Vocal NY, which is a grassroots organization. He says, because our leaders are saying, hey, there's so much rampant violence and homeless folks are a nuisance, and having armed police be the first interaction is the appropriate response. So basically he's saying, the city itself is making it kind of hot and making people feel like, the homelessness is out of control, and the police are the first response. And then you have people like an ex-Marine taking it upon himself to go into action for and escalating a situation where apparently a man may have been throwing garbage at people to where he ended up losing his life. So the video is out there. I'm not going to show the video footage of the man being choked to death, but there is a lot to go into. It's sort of unfortunate that we know so much about Jordan Neely, who from all appearances was the victim, yet we know nothing about the unnamed Marine who has not been charged, who was questioned for just a little while before the police let him go. And they released a statement saying that it's still under investigation. So I'll just go into a little bit more of what we're able to find out since this happened. So reading also in the Intercept, they talk about what usually happens. They say that sometimes it happens where people in New York are not, taken to the station and questioned and whatnot. But the article goes into saying that officers are often quick to make an arrest, or worse. So when a man was allegedly stabbed by a security guard last month in Queens, the cops shot him on the spot. On the same day when police responded to a man with a gun at a subway station in the Bronx, they shot him too. And in another incident on the same day, while responding to a report of a burglary, cops shot and killed a 78-year-old man who answered his door while holding a gun. So obviously, nobody's saying that they want the police to be out here killing people, but in many instances, the police don't ask any questions. But when there is a white person who is the the perpetrator of the crime, it seems like the situations get handled much differently. Um, it also gives you back kind of vibes to Eric Gardner in New York, back on Staten Island, when the police choked him out while he was saying he couldn't breathe. And, even to George Floyd in Minneapolis, which was kind of the big one that put the world on notice of what was going on. So just to kind of go into it, like I said, Jordan Neely was a homeless man who was on the subway, and he was kind of famous. People knew who he was. He was a Michael Jackson impersonator. So, people knew who he was, and they've kind of even put his name out there kind of bad, which is unfortunate. Talking about, all of the arrests and things that he has. It's like we've put the dead man on trial while we don't even know who the other man is. However, I did find articles talking about Jordan was a schizophrenic with autism, and his life kind of started spiraling after his mother was killed by his stepfather, who also strangled to death when he was a teenager. So that happened. He was 14 years old, and they say he kind of fell through the cracks of the system. So, from what I can see, let me show you a picture of him. So here he is, on the subway. If you've ever been to New York, you've seen the people who come on the train, and while you're riding, going wherever you're going, they provide some type of entertainment, whether it's a mariachi band, whether they're telling jokes, or doing a Michael Jackson impersonation. And then afterwards, they go through the crowd and ask people for spare change, dollar bills, and things of that nature. So they said that since a small child, he has been doing Michael Jackson impersonations. I guess his family kind of realized early on that him and Michael Jackson had a resemblance. And here's a video of him right here doing the Michael Jackson, doing his thing or whatever. But they talk about him being schizophrenic, and they talk about how he wasn't taking his medicine and things of that nature. And obviously, mental health is important. It's actually Mental Health Awareness Month right now. So it would be nice if, during this time, people could kind of take some time, learn how to respond to situations, dealing with people with mental disabilities other than with violence. And it would be even better if there was some type of justice for this young man. It seems like they're gonna let this man get away with killing him, but the video is everywhere. If you want to see the video, you can see it, and different people are saying different things. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez called Neely's death a public murder. Al Sharpton likened the Marines' actions to that of a famed subway gunman. Bernie Getz referring to a shooting of 4 black men on the train back in 1984, and said, "We cannot end up back in a place where vigilantism is tolerable. It wasn't acceptable then, and it can't be acceptable now." And the New York mayor, of course, is kind of using those buzzwords to let you know they're going to maybe try to let this go away quietly. I don't think that's very responsible at a time when we're still investigating the situation. Let's let the DA conduct his investigation with law enforcement officials. To really interfere with that is not the right thing to do, he said. To interfere with that is not the right thing to do. I'm going to be responsible and allow them to do their job to determine exactly what happened. So, we'll see. This story's not going anywhere. There's big protests right now in New York, and the fact that the Marine had the training could potentially work against him when it comes to whether or not he's charged, and whether or not he should have known that that was a hold that could have caused a death. So I'm gonna kind of break down for you the different things that, if he is charged, that he could be charged with, and it ranges from criminally negligent homicide all the way to second-degree murder. So criminally negligent homicide is only a Class C felony, and it's when someone causes the death of another person, so we could check that box, through actions that they failed to perceive as having a substantial and unjustifiable risk of death. So we could check that box, but it could be more than that. So we're going to go to the next one, which is actually second-degree manslaughter, a Class C felony, which is when someone causes the death of another person through actions that they perceive as having a substantial and unjustifiable risk of death, yet consciously disregarding the risk, or that they fail to perceive as having such a risk due to voluntary intoxication. So the intoxication, we don't have any reason to think that he was intoxicated, but we do have a reason to believe that the Marine thought that by putting him in a chokehold for 3 to 15 minutes that it could cause a death, and that he consciously disregarded it. So this is a C-class felony that's punishable up to 15 years, but it could be murder. So murder is and so first, a lot of places, first-degree murder is the highest murder that you can get, but in New York, first-degree murder is reserved for like police, firefighters, peace officers, and crimes against people like that. So for a murder against an everyday citizen, the highest is generally second-degree murder. So occurs with the intent to cause the death of another person. A person causes the death of such person or of a third person. And it's punishable by a prison term of at least 15 years to 25, and possibly life without parole. So what they're gonna probably try to say is that he did not intend to kill him. What the prosecution, if they end up deciding to take the case to trial, will have to show is that he did intend to kill him, because we can't check off that he caused the death of a third person. And we talked about murder on the very first episode of Law and Hip Hop with the University of Alabama basketball player, and we talked about some of the defenses. So some of the defenses that could come into play would be self-defense or the defense of others. So from everything that we know, the only thing that happened was paper and trash was being thrown at people, so that doesn't seem like it would be a viable defense. But they could try to raise that. And we missed one, first-degree manslaughter. So the intent to cause serious physical injury to a person. So there, anytime you have intent, they can argue that he didn't intend to cause serious physical injury to a person, and then the offender causes the death of that person or another. So, and then there's also with the intent to kill, which doesn't apply, but the circumstances do not constitute murder because he's acting under extreme emotional disturbance. So that's usually like if you walk in on your spouse and they're having an affair, and then you kill someone. Normally that's a murder, but they call it a crime of passion, so it gets reduced to a manslaughter. So this wouldn't apply at all. But for a first-degree manslaughter, it's punishable by a sentence of up to 25 years. So that doesn't apply. So we'd be looking at one of these three: criminally negligent homicide, or 4, first-degree manslaughter, second-degree manslaughter, or second-degree murder. Right? So it all comes down to what they're able to find for intent, because he definitely did cause the death of Jordan Neely. It would also be kind of silly to argue that this doesn't apply, at least this one, through the actions that they fail to perceive as having substantial and unjustifiable risk of death. So obviously choking someone out for, an extended period of time has a high risk of death. So these are the different sentences that are available for the unidentified man if they decide to, or charges that are available if they ever decide to charge him. So it goes anywhere from negligent homicide, which is 4 years, up to 4 years, to second-degree murder, which could be life without parole. So a lot of times with these racially motivated killings, you find that they charge for manslaughter and murder, and the jury usually comes back with a manslaughter charge. It's very rare to see them come back with the murder in the second degree, but we shall see what happens. So, I mean, I'm curious to know what people think about this. If you have any questions about this, be sure to put them in the chat or in the comments, and we'll be sure to get back if you're not watching live, and we'll provide the answers to those questions and provide more resources for that as well. But even though he was estranged from his family at the time due to his mental illness, we do wish the family of Jordan Neely great condolences, and we hope that there is justice that is brought for the actions that were taken on May 1st. So it's only been, since Monday that this happened, but hopefully we don't have to wait too long to find out what the situation is going to call for. If they don't arrest, I have an idea of what might happen with regard to the protests in New York, and hopefully they just do the right thing from the jump, and it's not a situation that causes for people to have to go out into the streets to exercise their right to peacefully assemble. Okay, and then there's another story about a woman who was seen dancing and joking on video after a fatal crash. She ended up getting 14 years in prison. It's kind of a wild story. She ran over two people, and then she stayed at the scene. She said that she had been drinking, but she didn't seem to really understand what was going on. She was laughing, she was joking, and she was talking to the police about getting back to school and going to class and all these things that just kind of made it clear that she didn't know the severity of what was going on. So she did end up being sentenced to 14 years in prison. Everything was caught on body cam, and let me see if we can pull it up, some of that as well. So this happened in East Peoria, Illinois.
We're going to probably do some field sobriety tests. The scene a little bit, let them do their thing, okay? This is your car, right? The red car?
Yes.
You were the only one in the vehicle?
I'm the only one.
Okay, come over here to my spot car, okay?
Yep.
Can you take your purse off and just set that on here? We got to... Yep. Do you have anything illegal on you?
Yes, I have marijuana
In your purse, okay. Have you had any marijuana tonight?
No.
Okay. Can you set those on the car for me?
My vape too?
Yep.
Okay.
Set that down there.
And my phone?
And your phone? Yes, ma'am. All right, just come over here. Just put your hands on my car. He's got a pass search before I put you in my car, okay?
Okay.
No pockets or anything?
No
Okay.
problem.
All right. Until we figure out how we're going to handle this, I'm going to have you sit uncuffed in the back seat of my car. I'm going to get you out. We're going to probably do some field sobriety tests and all that. I got some more questions for you. But right now, I'm going to have you sit down just so we're out of the roadway, okay? Come right over here.
What if Julia...
So yeah, I mean, I would never recommend that anyone admit to anything without having a lawyer present, even if you feel bad and or want to cop to it. You should definitely wait until you have an opportunity to speak with an attorney who can kind of walk you through the best way to plead your case. And you know, she definitely seemed out of it. They were about to ask her to take some field sobriety tests. I would probably also not suggest that you do that. In a lot of states, if you refuse to participate, you could have your license suspended. But ultimately, if you have any idea or doubt that you might, not pass the test, then that's probably going to happen anyway, right? So you might as well, refuse to take the test. And by the time they can make you take the test, maybe your blood alcohol levels come down, you're not as drunk, and they won't be able to have that evidence. But it's basically like you're putting the evidence in their hands. You're gift wrapping it to them. Why would you want to do that? So Shaggy was just accused of cheating. He said it wasn't him. So, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it wasn't you, but don't help them with their investigation. So she's about 24 years old. She's facing 14 years. She probably won't do the whole sentence, so she'll probably get out in her mid-30s at the latest, and she'll have a chance to kind of get a fresh start. But it was only a year ago. It happened April 12th, 2022, and they've already worked out a deal. She said that on a scale of 1 to 10, she was only a 5 in terms of being the most drunk she's ever been, with 10 being the most drunk. She said she's been very drunk in the past, and let's see. She did express some remorse eventually, and she was not allowed to walk in her graduation. So she ended up graduating, but she couldn't walk in the graduation. But unfortunately, those people also lost their life, and she's lucky to not have lost hers. Another story dealing with mental illness. We're going to move to the Atlanta shooting that happened yesterday. I was alerted to this through a group text with some of my friends from Atlanta from back in my college days. And the young man you see on the screen, Deion Patterson, he also suffers from mental illness from what I was able to gather. He was at the hospital or at a doctor's office, and something happened that led to him shooting and killing one woman and injuring 4 others. And he ended up leaving the hospital, stealing a car, and for about 8 or 9 hours he was on the run. So he left the city of Atlanta, which is Fulton County, and went to Cobb County, which is like one county over. So it's like if you're in Miami going to Fort Lauderdale kind of. And eventually the police were able to apprehend him. But again, this is a situation, they say he has mental illness, and something happened that kind of led to this shooting. So I hope that everything is investigated and he's sentenced appropriately, depending on his mental status at the time of this incident. Last story for today, it's just a quick blurb. It kind of goes along with the mental illness discussion. But in Miami-Dade County, they've got a new crisis response unit called the Crew. It's made up of police officers and a couple fire rescue members as well. So that's the picture you see. Is we're happy to announce the graduation of 21 officers and 2 firefighters of the newly implemented crisis response unit. The CRU provides specialized assistance for citizens experiencing a mental health crisis. We are incredibly proud of you all for successfully facilitating the Crew goal of de-escalating, assessing, and diverting individuals in crisis to behavioral health services in a safe, humane, and compassionate manner. Thank you for your hard work and dedication to serving our community. So Miami-Dade County in the past few years has also been in the news for incidents where police officers arrive to the scene of calls that come in, and they're not properly trained to assist people with mental illness. And in many of these instances, they've shot and or killed some of these people who were suffering with some type of mental health issue. So now it's good to see that they are training people to actually handle these situations appropriately. I've been told that when they arrive, they're not going to be in police cars like regular police. So even the situation itself for the people who are being confronted with the police presence, it won't be like a situation where it's like, oh, I'm dealing with the police. The cars are going to say, CRU, Crisis Response Unit, and hopefully this helps to curtail some of these instances of violence against mentally people with mental illness, and it continuously improves, and we're able to see this happen across the country with more and more police departments and cities implementing some type of police presence. And I did skip one story dealing with a man who went to jail. So this is what we were talking about in the beginning, and it's kind of crazy, but a man in Detroit ended up going to jail for 30 hours. But basically what happened was they were using facial recognition technology, and he was misidentified in a criminal case. So let me pull this up for y'all. So in 2018, a store security camera captured a person stealing watches. Then a couple years later, a black man named Robert Williams was arrested in front of his wife and 2 young daughters for the crime, but he had nothing to do with it. He wasn't informed of the reason of his wrongful arrest, leading him to spend 30 hours behind bars. So he said, I was arrested. I had no idea it was facial recognition. I was arrested for no reason. Following the arrest, they issued a statement that in part read, there are a number of checks and balances in place to ensure ethical use of facial recognition, including use on live or recorded video is prohibited, supervisor oversight in the weekly and annual reporting to the Board of Police Commissioners, and the use of the software. So I say all of this to say we're seeing more and more artificial intelligence technology being used in different things. There have been some songs. We're going to talk about some of the copyright issues with the music that's been made. Eminem had a song that came out, Drake, all these different artists. People are just using AI to make music. So that's a whole different issue. But this led to a man being detained in jail for over a day before they realized they had the wrong person. So AI is cool. I know a lot of people are using ChatGPT. It's like the number one fastest growing, most used app right now. And it serves a great purpose, and it's going to get better and better before it ends up taking over the world. But you got to be smart about how you use it. You got to make sure that you're checking your AI, because it's not quite ready for, you know what I'm saying, the big screen yet. It's still being worked out. There's still bugs in your AI, and mistakes like this. I mean, luckily it was 30 hours. You know, this brother could have did 30 years. I mean, probably not for that crime, but you know, let's say if the charge would have been more serious and he got sentenced, he could have did 25, 30 years, and then they would have been like, oh, my bad. Here's $140 a day to compensate you for every day you did in jail. So that's a new thing in California. I think it was a county in California where they came out and were talking about that's what they're going to be awarding to people, you know. So you do years and years and they're going to give you $140 a day, but wouldn't you rather just be free? I mean, anyway, we're going to close it out, try to be I guess it's still kind of a down story, but it's, you know, nobody's going to jail, nobody's dying. If you remember back in the day, there used to be a show called America's Next Top Model. One of the winners off of that show, I guess she ended up becoming like famous. She was on Real Housewives of Atlanta, or is on Real Housewives of Atlanta, Eva Marcille. And she actually went to school with me at Clark back in the day as well, before she went on Top Model. And she and her husband are divorcing, Michael Sterling. And, you know, that's kind of the story. They got irreconcilable differences, which is kind of like the magic words that are used in divorce. It was brought to my attention that she had an older child with a different person, an R&B singer, and apparently Michael Sterling adopted that child, and now he will be responsible for providing care for their minor children plus her child with the R&B singer Kevin McCall. So we probably won't be following that story too closely. It's kind of not that interesting. But when I did see that story, not that it's not interesting, it's just like all the, it's kind of typical for now. If something happens like what happened with Tyrese, then yeah, we'll be back talking about it. But what did strike me was what I saw a link related to another celebrity who, when I was looking at this article, I saw another celebrity who is in the middle of a divorce. And I didn't even know that he had been married, but Michael Strahan right here was apparently married to this woman, whoever she is, Jean. Oh, he was married to her back in 2006. That's why I never knew that. So now she's accusing him of owing her $500,000 for underpaying child support for nearly a decade. So he's kind of in a situation like Tyrese, where he might have to pay some money. But man, I thought he ended up getting married to her after he was dating Nicole Murphy. I was like, that's a big fall off. But apparently that was his wife from back in the day, so that doesn't necessarily apply. But it's very important that when a judge, provides an order that you pay or that you do anything, that you do it and you comply to the fullest extent. $500,000, if they add interest or attorney's fees, could very well become 7 figures for Mike. But that's that. So those are all the stories that we have today. I did want to bring the mental health awareness into it because there are, quite a few stories. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. The brother who was killed, Jordan Neely, in New York, also suffers with autism. As I've kind of said a couple times on the show, my son has autism, so anytime something intersects with autism, I'm a little bit interested, and I want to bring it out and kind of make people aware of those issues too, because a lot of times we have things that go undetected and untreated in the black community, and I'm sure other communities too, but specifically in the black community, and we want to make sure that people know about it so that they can do something about it. So that's the end of today's episode. We'll be back next week, and we'll do it again. If you have a question, you can leave an audio message at speakpipe.com/dopebblacklawyer, or you can send an email to holla@dopebblacklawyer.com. I appreciate you sticking with us till the end. And if you have any questions, again, make sure to leave them in the comments, and we'll be sure to get back to you. Peace.